is brainrot Bambi the clown, and I don't know what's real anymore. And if you were honest with yourself, you'd admit you lost the plot a long time ago too. I used to get my news from the news because that's where the news comes from. But then in, 2001, there was a real vibe shift in America, but I can't remember why. My school taught me I shouldn't trust the news because they're just old money NPCs gooning to the apocalypse, and instead I should think critically, do my own research, cook the tea myself. But then college happened, and I had to cancel basically all academics because I learned that from the ivoriest tower of Yale all the way to the moldiest basement of University of New Orleans, professors are all either reactionary, revisionist, imperialist, deterministic, and some are women. On top of that, the greatest brains are long unalived, so it's not like their election mood boards are still up to date. College taught me that people gain academic aura at best through extreme tolerance of bureaucratic bullshit, and at worst with greed and human sacrifice. Either way, it's rarely honesty or intellectual merit. So institutional knowledge was out, and I pivoted to streamer politics. Destiny, Bosch, Hassan, all just awful. But there was something nice about how they did tell me who to vote for. No soft suggestions, no do your own research, just confident men telling me exactly what they wanted from me. Who to ratio, from which political position, and with what words in my mouth. But after a few rounds of that, I realized they're all pretty toxic. Infinity molding, and doing lawful evil gooning on the side. Their argument, not mine. And each one of them wants you to hate the other two, so I decided to hate all three. Hate is kind of a strong word. I decided they're all subhuman abominations. No, that's even worse. I felt betrayed by them because they all have such massive brains and they're obviously just using them to self-simp and serve slop. Who do you know who's wasting their talents? Leave a comment below. So I started looking around for other news sources, and chat, I think everyone's cooked. If you're not on Russia's payroll, you're Qatar-funded or Israel-backed. Or you have a cluster B Machiavellian mother, or you're in a pyramid scheme, or you have family in the CIA. Be so for real, Tucker Carlson. I've watched a lot of rightoid landlord core recently, and he really takes the cake. He takes the cake. I'm even starting to think the president's a Fed. Bros mogging with trust fund vampires. Also sus skin color. Like, I hate to be that person, but I don't think he's natty. I feel guilty for all of my beliefs. I even feel guilty for my questions, for beliefs I don't have. Like, is Googling the side effects of the VAX problematic? People say don't just read headlines and to read the whole article, but the headlines feel like the Bible, and the article feels like a Gnostic text. I mean, there's secrets in there that aren't in the headline. There's nuance in those things. Ugh, what are we supposed to do walking around with nuance in our heads? I'm just waiting for someone to call me an extremist no matter what I say. And that's where the doomerism starts. Because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but clearly the national narrative is compromised and the only other options are conspiracy or brainrot nihilism. Being wrong used to be an itty-bitty thing. You'd get a fact wrong, get corrected, and you'd riz on. Now being wrong is a sign that everyone else is wrong, and you need to go find people who agree with you fast. It fractures every element of life. I mean, if there's one thing you're wrong about, there's probably a whole cascade of things that you're wrong about. So you learn things, and then you make a new friend, and then you make more friends, and then you listen to some new music, and then you join a couple Discord servers, and it's really hard to find where the fun ends and the extremism begins, because there's memes the whole time. I mean, if Keanu Reeves can achieve immortality, why couldn't Donald Trump be a time traveler? And if Avril Lavigne can be body snatched, why couldn't Shia LaBeouf be the victim of a multinational blackmail ring? I expect the feds to keep secrets from us for our own good, but sometimes it feels a tad desperate, and it reminds me of my narcissistic ex. He convinced me that he didn't forget my birthday, and it was actually me who forgot my birthday that already happened, and I forgot the whole party too. I tried to prove it with my birth certificate, but the thing is, I don't really have a birth certificate, just lots of forgeries I copped when I was on the lam. So then he comforted me by telling me that he was impressed with how well adjusted I was considering the circumstances, and that it's okay that I forget birthdays sometimes. But I don't think I did forget it. I think I was correct about it. I don't remember what it is now anymore, though. The other day I went to a cute little festival, and there was a stand there about wild bunny awareness, and they were selling these foster bunnies for money, and they were talking about how often these bunnies get abandoned, and so now there's this huge wild bunny population, and they can't fend for themselves out there because they're domesticated bunnies. But then I accidentally thought about it, and I realized that makes no sense. Because if the bunny population is growing, then they're fending for themselves just fine. That's how population works. And if there is a surplus of them, I could get one for free from the ditch. I can't even trust cute girls selling bunnies to give me accurate news about the ecology of the Pacific Northwest. Everyone is selling me something, or they're simping for something they bought off of someone else. The whole economy is vibes-based scams. Sometimes I feel like the existence of gender is just an angelic conspiracy invented to divide humanity into two arbitrary halves so we don't usurp God herself. And other times I feel like gender abolition is the conspiracy to divide the alliance of girls and erase our divine generational mitochondrial witch wisdom. I fear that gender abolition ends in abolishing one gender, not both, and I will always stan the girlies, period. Rachel Zegler's voice is far too shrill and unpleasant for me to listen to her speak, but I will always fight for her right to speak, out of earshot. I tentatively do believe the Earth is round, but I confess I did not do my own research. I don't have time to be a scientist right now because I'm too busy managing my investments in cryptocurrency. But there's a lot of people out there with protractors and kaleidoscopes, and honestly I can't be bothered to figure out who's paying them to say the Earth is round. I would pay them to say that the Earth is round, because I don't want to deal with the planet being flat. That's too much. It ruins everything. Hollow Earth I do think is kind of fun though, because tunnels do exist, and hollow is just a matter of perspective. I mean, ant piles are hollow for the ants, so maybe the Earth is hollow for rocks and magma, and primordial stone creatures, and short kings. The food supply is definitely being poisoned, though, by big, greedy corporations reducing food waste. But it's only poison for the insects, and I believe humans are more than just big, squishy insects. because we're all fish and we carry the ocean inside of us. And that's why we have to drink salty electrolytes sometimes, because we have to replace the ocean that falls out of us sometimes by accident. Anyway, they're poisoning the plant foods with pesticides, and they're poisoning the animal foods with hormones. And if there's one thing us femoids can guarantee, it's that hormonal poisoning is no joke. And the animals are shitting all their poisoned shit into the soil and into the water, and who knows what that's doing to the earthworms. And I'm really trying not to be a conspiracy theorist, but now there's these massive data centers for AI that are sprinkled across the country, and they're multiplying this country's energy expenditure by numbers. And on top of that, they're stinking up the air with gasoline, and they're making loud, buzzing noises that are driving the local communities loco poco. Chat, we're being tortured with poisoned land, food, air, water, light, sound. And then I turn on the news and they're all like, oh, the rise in mental illness sure is mysterious. How can we get Gen Z to meditate more so that they calm down? And here's why we should do more war in the Middle East. And then when you even open your mouth to suggest that war and death is sad, actually, all of the voices point their disembodied fingers right at you, and they say, conspiracy extremist, conspiracy extremist, conspiracy extremist. You're just like Alex Jones. And that's my very worst nightmare. I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist just for wondering if the president is a Fed, or if big billion-dollar corporations are greedy, right? I mean, that's like wondering if race car drivers really want to go fast or not. But maybe I am. Maybe the voices are right, and I should be less paranoid, and just trust Grok AI. Sometimes I wonder what that would be like, to believe that institutions really put my interests before their own, as if there was any historical precedent for that. Would I be happier, or would I be sicker, if I went to normal school and was popped out a perfect puppet for the, a good citizen? Is that the puppet? Or am I the puppet? Am I just a puppet of the damned, embodying the fears and anxieties of an entire generation? Which one of us is capping? My foster father had a speech impediment where he couldn't pronounce his F's, and right before he disappeared into the ocean, his last words to me were, "Bambi, you can live any lie you want." I don't know if he meant life, but the older I get, the more I realize it's the same sentence either way. Everyone's capping on God for real, but at least I get to choose my own copium. I got a boyfriend, by the way. I can't talk about my boyfriend, though, because he's in the CIA. This is Brainrot Bambi signing off. Skibbity, skibbity, yeet. Okay, I want to talk about Ireland. Specifically, I want to talk about the famine. About the fact that there never really was one. There was no famine. See, Irish people were only allowed to eat potatoes. All of the other food, meat, fish, vegetables, was shipped out of the country under armed guard to the English, while the Irish people starved. And then, during the middle of all this, they gave us money not to teach our children Irish, and so we lost our history, and this is what I think is still hurting me. See, we're like a child that's been battered, has to drive itself out of its head because it's frightened, still feels all the painful feelings, but loses contact with the memory. And this leads to massive self-destruction, alcoholism, drug addiction, all desperate attempts at running, and in its worst form becomes actual killing. And if there ever is gonna be healing, there has to be remembering and then grieving so that there then can be forgiving. There has to be knowledge and understanding. An American Army regulation says you can't kill more than 10% of the nation because it causes permanent psychological damage. It isn't permanent, but they didn't know that. So anyway, during the supposed famine, we lost a lot more than 10% of our nation through deaths on land or on ships of immigration, but what finally broke us was not starvation, but in the controlling of our education. Schools go on about Black 47, on and on about the terrible famine, but what they don't say is, in truth, there never really was one.